There's a curious requirement in the Catholic Church that above every altar in the center of the church where Mass is said, you have to have one of the most grotesque figures you can think of. A man beaten half to death, crowned with thorns, broken and torn, hanging on a tree, hanging on a cross. You got to have that. That's liturgically required, that we look at Jesus Christ crucified every time we go to Mass. Isn't that awful? Yeah, it is. But that's the reality of his sacrifice. Why can't we look at the reality of these children's deaths?
Face the Truth is a bold new public education initiative that brings the reality of abortion to the highways and downtown intersections of cities and towns across America, confronting those who have turned away from the tragedy of our age.
America is in a death ethic. We've killed 47 million children. That's unconscionable, and something has to be done. And we're doing what has to be done. We're showing America the face of abortion.
People don't see these pictures anywhere, do they?
This is the first time that 99% of the people have seen these pictures. So it's been an education.
We're a real visual society, and people need to see victims in order to empathize with them. And you see that with the Holocaust pictures that are in history books. You see it with the victims of starvation and war in third world countries now. You have to see what's happening to people in order to empathize and make a change, to make a difference.
People have said, is that really what an abortion is? They don't know it, and this really brings it to them.
People are not aware of the traumatic results of abortion, the horrible traumatic results.
And the pictures are tremendously effective. I know that because that's how I got in the pro-life movement. I saw a picture of what they do to babies, and I said, that is intolerable. I got to fight that.
To get people to think seriously and deeply about the value of human life, and when they're faced with a crisis pregnancy, remember they saw these pictures. What happens to that baby?
That's what we call this, face the truth. The truth is abortion is ugly, it's murder, it's killing children, and the American people have to see it. So we're going to launch these efforts all over the United States.
So what are you doing here today?
Well, we're just showing people the truth about abortion. We want to stand up and let people see it.
I'm educating people about what abortion is.
I believe that this abortion is really wrong, and we want to come out here and give our support today.
There's so many ways to fight the culture of death. Why do you consider this an important way?
Because this is the way that reveals that abortion is truly the killing of an innocent human being. Because these photos undeniably show human beings who have endured injustice. And there's no way of getting around that.
Even though these pictures horrify me, I think that without something like this, that we become complacent.
Yeah, it's graphic, and it's really disgusting. When people say, oh, that's disgusting, I say, yes, it sure is disgusting. We have to do something to stop this. It's absolutely disgusting.
Do you think this is an effective way to do this?
It's one of many effective ways. I think taking it to the people, we've had a lot of good reactions.
Overwhelmingly a good response. Like I said, lots of thumbs up, people saying, God bless you, what you're doing is right, this is marvelous.
I've been on this tour for most of the cities. They were saying to us, we're so glad you're here, it's about time.
Participants of Face the Truth stand with large signs depicting fetal development and abortions, while others distribute a variety of pro-life literature. The display is preceded by warning signs, so that those who wish to avoid seeing these pictures may take a different route. Volunteers hold their signs in position for a little over an hour, then move on to the next location.
It's very simple, just a matter of getting out and holding a sign up and being a witness for what is right and true.
I think that the people who have come have been really glad they did. They feel like they've made an impact. They've gotten reaction from people.
It's my privilege to be here.
They're willing to be out here and take the flack, but also see the good that this is doing.
It's been a real blessing to be a part of this. I just found out about it on Sunday, and I had the privilege of being at 2 locations yesterday.
I'm here because I feel like this is as much a Holocaust as what happened in World War II with the Jewish people.
And I would come all the time just to stand up for the little ones who have no one to speak for them but us.
Okay, if you can all come with me. Young man, I need your help.
Face the Truth is highly organized, peaceful, and legal, and it gets reactions from people on all sides of the issue.
We had a warning sign you could have turned.
What am I supposed to do? Turn out of my way just because you're holding a sign?
Yes, we gave you a warning. We gave you a warning.
I think if they're disturbed by it, it means that they're seeing the truth. This is what abortion really is, and I don't think a lot of people know how gruesome it really is.
It gets people who are outraged, many of whom are pro-abortion, because obviously there are people who believe abortion should be legal.
Doesn't bother you?
No, it doesn't. No. I just offer up a prayer for them.
Every woman has a right to choose their own destiny.
We don't have the right to murder.
Children do not need to see that.
It touches a chord in people that they don't want touched. We don't want to feel that. We don't want to recognize that that's really what's happening. And so we try and deny it. Yeah. And then we get mad at the people who portray it.
What about even pro-life people who are very upset by this and say you shouldn't be doing it?
Well, I know we've gotten the reaction that pro-life people say, we're with you, we're against abortion, it's a terrible thing, but how dare you show these vulgar pictures on a street corner and children will see them? And it's a serious concern. I think some people are legitimately asking that question, but we saved a baby's life yesterday. And if you're able to save a life by doing that, then forcing somebody to talk to their child about abortion is worth it.
How do you feel about your children being here and seeing these pictures?
Well, I feel strongly that they should see it. They know some, I don't know how much they understand, but I think it's important for them to know now, while they're young, to learn what's right and what's wrong.
And what are you doing here today, Sarah?
Showing signs about babies dying.
Why are you doing that?
Because people have to know that abortion is bad.
We say, talk to your children about drugs, talk to your children about bad TV. Why not talk to your children about abortion?
It's gruesome, but I never heard of the Holocaust until I was 19 years old, and this is an important thing for them to know about as they're little, because it's happening right now.
Why are you here today, Elliot?
To stop abortion. This is truth. And they're not afraid to see the truth. They look and see it, and they have a new appreciation for them being born.
And it is indeed miraculous how quickly a few photographs displayed on a public street can bring about a change of mind, a change of heart.
Many things have happened that have been exciting. One of the most exciting happened yesterday in Rockford, when a lady stopped, asked me what the pictures were all about, and I said, this is a baby that's life was ended in the 5th month by a D&E, which is the baby's dismembered in the womb, and she then proceeded to cry. And I asked her, is there anything I could do? And she says, well, I am pregnant and I have an abortion scheduled, but I didn't know what it was. She immediately expressed an interest to keep the baby then. We brought people together to help her through her pregnancy, to give her all the help that crisis pregnancy centers do. That was a tremendously uplifting experience for me.
The historians who have done studies on the Vietnam War, well, they say that the American public didn't start turning against that war until the media were bringing those photographs home, those visual images home of what this dirty, rotten, awful war was about. And that's what really turned the tide. And I think that that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to show the truth about abortion.
They're not going to see these pictures unless we stand out here and show them these pictures. They're not going to be in the papers. They're not going to be on TV. And there's just, we have to do it.
You have to be on the street and show the truth of abortion. That's the only way that the people are going to see it. You have to bypass the media, the press. They're not going to show a picture like this.
This is the way to strip the lie off of legalized abortion. The lie being that it doesn't kill an innocent human being. It most certainly does, and our pictures show that it does.
They're still under the impression it's just a lump of tissue, that it's not a real living human being with a soul.
We don't just sit back in our rocking chairs or wherever we are and say, well, abortion is bad, but there's nothing we can do about it. Everyone can take an active part.
All I can say is that this is the truth, and that you can't go ahead, you can't go on denying it forever and ever.
Abortion could have been stopped, could never have gotten where it is, if believing Christians had acted. Your actions flow from what you believe. If you really believe that abortion is killing a child, let's act like it. Let's get out there. Let's do something about it. And there is something to do.
Some people have come out for maybe a full day or 2 full days or 3 full days, and maybe they intended to come once and they thought, I'm coming back, you know, I really am glad I came.
In DeKalb, 2 people spontaneously joined the tour.
Greetings, I'm William Burch, and welcome to another edition of the International Prolife Federation. Today we have attorney Melissa Williams with the Community Justice Coalition, who's going to discuss the Illinois SEAL bill. And we have Arness Dancey, who is the president and CEO of the Chicagoland Black Chamber of Commerce, who will be discussing the Chicago infrastructure deal and how we're going to bring all of these things together to talk about how it can benefit our community, both the Illinois SEAL bill and the Chicago infrastructure deal. I'm going to start with Melissa so she can explain to us what the Illinois SEAL bill is and give us a little more information about the sponsor and what we need to do to help move this SEAL bill forward so that we can get it passed to help the people in our communities.
Good evening to everyone. I'm actually working with a group of organizations throughout the state of Illinois. We're currently calling ourselves the Criminal Justice Community Coalition. And some of the organizations that are involved with the sealing bill are the NAACP, which is not only here in Chicago, but throughout the state that we have various branches. We also have the Cook County Public Defender's Office that's working with us, Cabrini Green Legal Aid Clinic, the Safer Foundation, Green Acres Consulting, the Wiley Resource Center Legal Support Program. So there are just a number of organizations throughout the state. We just got in LASE Chicago is joined on with us. MALDEF is working with us as well. We see a need in our community to be able to help folks get back to work.
Okay.
And the reality is that when folks have criminal records, not only in the state of Illinois, but throughout the country, even though these folks have paid their debt to society, they've served their time, whether it be jail or prison time, whether it be probation, or a lot of times, even if it's a conditional discharge where they never served any time whatsoever, they're not able to get back to work because employers are looking at their records, they're seeing these convictions, and they're saying, we will not hire you. Right? So we know that that's a problem. I mean, because if people are not able to work and they're not able to eat, and then the next thing that we're looking at is more violence and crime in our communities. So we believe that if we can help them to seal some of the records that they have so that employers will not be able to see it and hold it against them, or even like with the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless that's working with us, we're looking at this as being a housing barrier as well. Right. You know, landlords are looking at this and saying, I know that this was 10 or 15 years ago, but I can't allow you to live in my property. You know, that's an issue. Or for folks that want to get an education, they want grants and scholarships and loans, and they want to be able to better themselves by getting higher education. They're having an issue with doing that as well. So this sealing bill is not expungement. There's a difference, right? With expungement, that record is completely destroyed. Unfortunately, that's not something that we're going to be able to get for everyone at this time. But we do believe that it's fair to be able to at least seal their records so that they can get back into society and get back into life and improve our communities.
And most importantly, it's important so that they can get back to getting employed.
Absolutely.
Which leads us to Mr. Dancey with the Chicagoland Black Chamber of Commerce. If you can, you know, I know there's been a lot of controversy about the Chicago infrastructure deal that was passed by the City Council. Can you enlighten us on the pros and the cons of the infrastructure deal and how we want to bring that back around and see how that ties into the Illinois Seal Bill?
Of course, Mr. Burch. Basically, we started looking at infrastructure trusts roughly about 2 years ago. Currently, 43 states have infrastructure banks. And the reason infrastructure banks came about was the motor fuel tax, which every time we go to the gas station, we fill up our cars, we pay a motor fuel tax. Those taxes go up to the federal government. Once those taxes come back down to our states and counties, they have paid for road, bridges, and infrastructure improvements. Given that more and more people are driving more fuel-efficient cars, that means less gas tax money went to the federal government. Yes. So now that begs the question, how are you going to fund infrastructure improvements? And that's how infrastructure banks came about, was to have public-private partnerships between government and public and private investors that who will put up the money, and on the backside, the government agency will issue bonds, which is debt, that all of us will pay back as taxpayers in order to repay the investors. The problem with the recent infrastructure bill that was passed by City Council, it was rushed through. There are many problems with it. One, the Office of Inspector General of Chicago talked about the safeguards that are not in the bill. Two, there's a law called Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The way this bill was put together, and by only having one alderman and everybody else private officials, pretty much you cutting all these deals in back rooms. It's not brought before the public. Also, when the deal was announced, Mayor Emanuel had made several trips to the Chicago Federation of Labor. Well, basically, the reason that happened was City of Chicago is a project labor agreement town, meaning that all construction work goes through the construction trade unions. And if anybody know our history here in Chicago for the last 20, 30 years, blacks and other minorities will shut out the trade industry. So with that being said, you pass a bill that's $1.7 billion that we all going to participate in the payback, but from a contract, minority participation, black participation, and from a job standpoint, there's no safeguard, no benefits in there. If you're going to have project labor agreements for unions, then for the regular resident, we need community benefits agreement, legally binding with penalties.
Exactly.
This hasn't been done here in Chicago that often when it comes to our tax dollars. So it ties to kind of what we're talking about from the standpoint, from a job standpoint, that if we don't have these safeguards in place, just like with TIF and everything else that we've seen, we're not going to participate, and you're going to still see poverty, crime, and unemployment. So some going to benefit, but the masses are not.
Okay. All right. So you telling me that the City Council was advised about the safeguards, and the safeguards were never put in place, and you also were telling me that we have not put together or constructed a community benefits agreement to benefit the community.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. The city of Chicago is a $6 billion entity. They spread that money out to do a lot of economic development that's supposed to create contract and job opportunities. But as we've seen from the affirmative action, game plan, there was a lot of front companies, so we really didn't build capacity. From a workforce standpoint, we weren't in the trades. So how do we really benefit other than from the payback? So from the number one duty of an alderman or Cook County commissioner or state rep or senator is legislation. There's good legislation and there's bad legislation. Do we need an infrastructure bank trust? Yes, we do. But did we have to ram it through? No, we didn't.
Okay. And so let me ask this question. And Melissa, you can let me know. Is it too late for us to pull together a community benefits agreement to present to City Council as an addendum to this ordinance or legislation?
In my estimation, no. All it takes is 26 votes. There's 20 black wards. So if we partner with, say, some Latino aldermen and some white lakefront liberal aldermen, I'm quite sure we can get to the 26 votes. And
while we're talking about getting to votes, we want to talk about how do we get to those votes for the Illinois Seal Bill. What is the bill number for the Illinois Seal Bill, Melissa?
So our bill number is HB 5723. If you look it up on the Illinois General Assembly website, it looks like that it is in committee right now. We actually had passed out of committee, but our goal is to make sure that when the bill is called, that we have the 60 votes that we need. 60 plus votes is what we want in order to get this bill passed. So what we need folks to do, not just from Chicago, but we need you to tell your family and friends around the state. We need you to contact, first of all, your state representatives.
Okay.
If you don't know who your state representative is, I'll give you the phone number for Operation 24 Community Association. We will look that information up for you, and we will give you the name of your legislator or tell you how you can go online and find that information yourself. So that phone number is 773-960-9269. That's 773-960-9269. If you do know who your state representative is, call directly, please, down to Springfield and call through the speaker's telephone number and ask for your state representative. And that number is 217-782-4040. Again, that's 217-782-4040. And what you will do, you'll ask for your state representative, you'll be transferred to their office, and you'll let them know that you want them to support and vote yes on HB 5723, which is the sealing bill, and that you also want them to step up to the plate and co-sponsor that bill. And Will, I do want to say this, a lot of times people think, oh, I'm kind of nervous about calling into that office, even that alderman's office, for city ordinances and things like that. I don't know, I don't feel comfortable talking to my legislator. Well, what I will tell you is this: they felt comfortable enough to come out into our communities, shake your hands, kiss your babies, and ask for your vote. And you employ them. Your tax dollars employ them. So it is your right, right? It is your right to speak out on legislation that you want them to support, as well as legislation that should be opposed, or things that you want to see changed. For instance, with the infrastructure trust, if you're not feeling comfortable with that, you have a right to speak out on that, right? You have a right to participate in the process. So don't be afraid to do that. And whether it's speaking out on the sealing bill or speaking out on the infrastructure trust or whatever it is that you see in your community that needs to be improved, don't be afraid or ashamed.
Well, what it sounds like to me here is that we have an opportunity here to open the door to access to employment for individuals who've made mistakes before. And over here, it sounds like that we have jobs that we need to create some kind of community benefits agreement for, so that we can make sure that these jobs are accessible to these individuals that's going to be benefiting from the sealing bill.
Absolutely.
To be able to be put to work in our communities, right?
I agree.
I mean, so how do we make that work? I mean, one of the hardest things in the city of Chicago that I've learned since being in politics and studying politics and watching and just being around people who are politically influenced is that we can't get our elected officials on local and state levels to work together. On a common ground. It seems like to me this all works together. I mean, if our mayor can propose pension reform for the state, then it seems like the state reps and the senators could be able to talk to the mayor about the infrastructure deal and how this seal bill can help pull the whole city of Chicago back together up and give them as our president said, a leg up. I mean, does that make sense?
Definitely, and we have never leveraged our political power. There are 50, let's take a look at each level of government real quickly. There's 50 wards. There are 20 majority black wards. We have 19 African-American aldermen representing those 20 wards, with Barfield Reddy in the second ward representing the other 20 black ward. It seems like we can't ever seem to come together to get those 20 black aldermen to carry legislation on agenda that impacts the very people that they're sent down to city council to represent. If we can get those 20 to start there, because that's our first line of defense, is the alderman in government. The next level is county commissioner, next level state rep, state senator, congressman, U.S. senator, president. Without those 20 black votes, for the most part, much legislation cannot get passed through city council. If you look at Springfield, there are 117 legislators in the House, and there are 59 in the Senate. If you look at the Black Caucus in the House, there are 30 black members. it takes at least 60 votes to pass any legislation in the House. So without those 30 black votes on the Democratic side, nothing can pass. Same thing in the Senate. There are 59 senators. It takes 30 senators to pass any legislation in the Illinois Senate. There are 10 Illinois state senators. So we can really impact with a cohesive agenda that mirrors our political power at the automatic level, at the state rep level, at the state senator level. But sometimes egos get in the way. And I think we've all dealt with legislators, good and bad per se. And that seems to be the number one thing, is they seem to be concerned about someone coming after their seat. How about doing your job, what you're paid to do, and deal with that when the time comes?
Well, what say you, Melissa?
Well, I agree with Mr. Dancey that it's too much paranoia, and it's not healthy paranoia for our communities. It shouldn't just be about holding on to a seat, because that seat belongs to the people. And so let's work together, because as we can see, that's what other communities are doing. That's how they're leveraging their power, you know, on issues that 20, 30 years ago, we might not have seen anybody marching on. Now we see people speaking out about immigration. We see people speaking out about gay rights. And why is it that we can't speak out about some of the things that we see in the African American community? I mean, we know that jobs is the #1 issue in the country, not only for blacks, but for everyone. But if we know that that's what's hitting our community hardest, for instance, if Mr. Dancey is a state senator and you, Will, are a state representative and I'm an alderman, we all need to be able to work together, and we also need to be able to bring in people from the community. We need to be able to have some task forces and some councils in order to advise us on what some of the issues are that need to be addressed. You know, one of the things that we've realized with the Political Action Committee for the NAACP is that there are pieces of legislation that may be in my mind. I'm not a legislator, right? I'm not an elected official, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be able to bring that to my legislator or my elected official. And the reality is that's how you were able to work with State Representative Ford to pass the Black Employment Plan. That's how we're able to bring State Representative Ford and State Representative Howard to work on HB 5723 in order to do the ceiling bill. And that's how we need to be able to look at the African American aldermen, holding them accountable, as well as other aldermen that are sitting on the city council, to say, hey, we need to take a look and see how this infrastructure trust is truly going to affect our community.
In addition to that, in order, I feel, to get those groups to work together, is each one of them have a caucus: City Council Black Caucus, Illinois House Black Caucus, Senate Black Caucus. We need to make sure that they release the minutes of every one of their caucus meetings, what the agenda was, what they discussed. Because right now, it's just there is no record of what's going on in these caucuses.
Well, we're in a different era. We're in an era of transparency. So supposedly, and they work for us. And usually, when you work for an employer, they supervise you, correct? And so, you know, nowadays your supervisor can monitor you from off-site. You know, so why not make these council meetings accessible to us via teleconference, video, or YouTube, or some kind of archive thing where we can actually see who's doing what in these committee meetings.
I definitely agree something like that needs to happen. Also, too, the black community needs to learn more about the Freedom of Information Act request in order to get at some of this information to make intelligent decisions. That's one thing we do very well, that when we deal with our legislators, we understand operational budgets, capital budgets, the ebbs and flow of government. As a student of government for the last 29 years, we intently watch how our tax dollars are being spent. If I can change subjects real quick, another hot topic issue here lately was TIFs, tax increment financing. Chicago has 155 TIF districts. As of recently, there was no job creation tied to those TIF districts. And each year, the mayor administration was allowed to spend several $100 million per year in our property tax dollars to spur development throughout Chicago, well, primarily downtown. Tax increment financing is the #1 redevelopment